Well, President Book, thank you so much for joining me today. It feels like just yesterday you were sitting here with our Jack Norcross, then senior, talking about the COVID plans for the future. Convocation looked a little bit different last year. I know that obviously is coming up this week. What are some things you plan to share with the freshmen this week?
Well, one thing is, all of the students that are arriving had a really disrupted senior year. And so part of my talk is about recognizing that their launch into Elon has been different than previous classes. The focus this year is on the word what, as in, so what? And what are you waiting for? And so I'm trying to add, I think searching for the right tone at this time is really important. We know we're not on the other side of a pandemic, right? We know this is a long haul and here to stay. And so it's really about living with the pandemic and learning with those changing conditions all around you. So really trying to talk about the power of learning.
All right. Well, obviously the pandemic is, still here, unfortunately, and we're, of course, moving forward. And while that's going to be a key thing that you say to them, obviously a lot of our policies and procedures are, of course, always changing, but still a little bit intact. So talk to me a little bit about the 10-day mask mandate. What was the science sort of based to do that for 10 days? Is it just an example of safety theater, or what was the thought behind that?
So we have transitioned the Ready and Resilient work to Healthy Elon over the summer. And we're continuing. I think we know a lot more about public health, and even though we didn't send a Wednesday email prior to the mumps to students, we were monitoring the cases of flu that we were experiencing. So I think what's happened is we just realized that we need to be in constant communication about the health conditions in a residential environment. And so Healthy Elon has transitioned, and we're monitoring. We still have a dashboard that people can see. It won't be the daily drumbeat, but it will be a weekly drumbeat. And we are monitoring the CDC. You probably saw that the CDC created a new thermometer on the Delta variant. And when Alamance County went into severe, we decided as a campus that we wanted to mask up. And particularly because we have so many people coming right now to campus from all over. And it's an intense period, right? Move in and students meeting each other for the first time and exploring facilities. And we want to be able to have as healthy of a start as possible. So we thought it was prudent. The recommendation from Healthy Elon was to mask up. And we'll probably take it in 2-week intervals. So we'll check in again on Wednesday before the 29th. On the conditions that are on our campus and in our surrounding area and make a call.
To potentially extend.
Yes, if we need to extend or do anything additional. And I personally am not anticipating that. What we are seeing, if you saw the news, Duke is dealing with 100 cases. And so there's two things happening. We're seeing a waning effectiveness of our vaccine. We knew that was going to happen, that eventually everyone would need a booster. So we're starting to see people who were vaccinated, like med students in December right away, have COVID. And then the good news is what we're seeing are people who are vaccinated in our campus, right at 97%, feeling very good about the students that are arriving and our outlook. What you're seeing is very mild, if any, symptoms from that. So the vaccines are working and keeping us healthier.
So you mentioned booster shots. Is that something that Elon is preparing for, to have vaccine clinics on campus for those booster shots if they become available for those?
Yes, we anticipate Pfizer's already talking and modeling that when that will occur. So we should all have in our head, just like the flu, that this vaccine is going to come with a booster schedule. And we already had flu clinics You know, that's a regular at Elon, so we will very, very likely be adding COVID clinics.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the vaccine requirement. So as of the last community update, 94% of undergraduate students were vaccinated. Nearly 85% of full-time staff and faculty had submitted their vaccination documentation. So why, well, first of all, actually, why was it mandated only for students to be fully vaccinated and not faculty and staff when obviously they're older than college students and they're definitely at a higher risk than, you know, students are?
Well, I will say that students live congregately, right? So we're a residential campus. Another college president said, you know, college campuses are like cruise ships on land. So, I mean, that's part of why for decades that vaccines have been required for college students. So our faculty and staff come in and out of that setting, but they're not living in that setting. So I do think there is a different standard in play for vaccines for students versus faculty and staff. That said, we are looking at that closely about whether or not faculty and staff should be required to have the vaccine. And if we make that determination they should, it would be very similar to the student rollout in that you'd have exemption in the same way for religious or medical reasons. So it's not something off the table. So we are, you know, looking at that, and this is a new disease. And so we're continuing to monitor the science and the opportunity and the law around the vaccines.
So I know you're constantly talking with other schools about kind of vaccine requirements because a lot of the schools around us have you know, mandated vaccines for their faculty and staff as well. So what was it, just the congregating factor for students? I mean, there are some faculty and staff who do live here on campus, not, of course, a small majority of them, but...
And the high compliance rate that we're seeing voluntarily is part of it too, you know.
How much higher was that than students from the fall? I mean, I'm sorry, from last spring.
So I think we are, I'd have to look, the email from John Dooley that comes out tomorrow will detail it.
Okay.
But we have really good compliance with faculty and staff as well. I haven't felt you know, and we're monitoring it. So these are conversations that are going on. So it just hasn't reached a decision point that I felt we needed to trigger it yet.
I guess let's change a little bit to some more current events too, because COVID is very important. But you know, there's a lot of other things going on here on campus too that we want to make sure we touch. We've mentioned a few of them. You, during this is now your 4th academic year, entering as president. You've faced a lot of things: hurricanes, mumps, tornadoes, COVID. There's many I'm missing. Are you tired? How are you feeling?
I think everybody's tired. I most of the days I wake up grateful to work in a purpose-driven, right? And I feel a great sense of purpose about the work we do at Elon, educating young people. When I hear people lamenting about their employment, I'm like always grateful that we have such a purpose-driven. It has been challenging for all of us, and the world's been challenging. And I often think, okay, would you rather be a leader at this moment or in a follow mode? And I don't begrudge at all being in a leadership position. And I'm really grateful for the team of Elon community. By that, I mean, it's a team. And even though we may disagree at Elon, people listen and listen respectfully to each other. And I highly value that. Even in protest, right? I'm a former journalist, so I've covered a lot of protest, and I also am respectful of just the right that we have to protest and the right that we have to share our view. I mean, I think that's something I highly value, especially in a university setting where there should be a difference of opinion, right?
Well, and actually, going off of that, last year during your interview with us, you talked a little bit about cancel culture. And you said, what I hope for this campus is that we can do a better job in having good discourse and that we do not adopt a cancel culture on learning. You said, if we have a cancel culture that silences people, I promise you this democracy will not work. So it sounds like you're standing by those words.
Yeah.
How is Elon, do you think, working to further achieve that, to kind of eliminate this view or culture of canceling on that a lot of college campuses are facing.
And I think that, right, I think this is part of, and I would say that there's a difference between my generation and our college experience and this generation, and from all sorts of things, not just the social media and the digital world, but also our political environment, our global unrest. So I do think it's really important, and I'll just stress again that we recognize in our classrooms and in our experiences across campus that this should be the place to safely talk about difference and to give each other the courtesy that we may not always have the right words to do it, right? We're learning those words. I know some people are hesitant to talk about race. I think that's one area that people really are nervous. And a lot of that has to do in race, socioeconomics, religion, political viewpoints. Some of that has to do with a fear that what I say here could be recorded and posted on social media. What I say here, maybe people won't know what's in my heart, right? They won't be able. And so what I would hope in each of our settings is that people take time to acknowledge that and say, we want to have good discourse, that it is natural to have a difference of opinion because we've all lived differently. And to give each other the grace to say this is a safe place. If we cannot do that in higher education, have that difference of opinion, then we are all going to graduate with less than we deserve.
So we've seen across the country, especially this summer, parents getting a lot more involved in their child's education. I think being at home during the pandemic, they got a kind of first glimpse view of the procedures that are being taken, some of the teachings that are being taken, and so on and so forth, especially from a K through 12 education point, but even in higher education. How is Elon working to get parents more engaged this academic year?
That's really great. I think one of Elon's strengths is we communicate a lot with parents. So when you get that Wednesday email from Dr. Dooley, it's actually going to your parents, and parents have taken a lot of interest for years before this on the Elon experience. We have several boards, advisory boards of parents, talking to them about the decision to send their student to Elon. What were the factors? I think it helps Elon understand the transition better. And I can give you hundreds of examples where parents have helped us through their insights be a better university. So I know students may not always feel that way to have a parental, questions and all that.
Sure.
But that they are also your advisor. Like, we recognize that students call and say, I'm thinking about a class, and ask their parents' opinion. That's great. I always tell students, let your parents pick one class you take. And the reason I say that is your parents see something in you that you may not see in yourself, right? They know something. They've lived with you. They may see it. So let those parents have just one of the classes you take that you may not have selected. I think that's a good thing. So I will say I embrace this parental involvement, and it has been largely positive. It's not to say that I haven't fielded some calls from parents who disagree with something, a position that university's taking. But I find most of our parents willing to have dialogue about why we're going in this direction. And while at the end of the day they may not totally agree with it, at least they know we listened, we gave their viewpoint a lot of consideration and discussion, and appreciate that through that dialogue. That's how we make better, more informed decisions.
I want to talk a little bit about the Common Reading book. Because again, one thing that we've seen parents, again, specifically in K through 12, atmospheres throughout this summer, is being particularly vocal about the fight against critical race theory. At Elon, our Common Reading book, which is, again, the first-year students' first introduction to the Elon curriculum, was stamped Racism, Anti-Racism in You by Ibram X. Kendi, who is sort of known as the leader of the critical race theory movement. So why this book?
So we do have a group of faculty, staff, and students who select the Common Reading every year. I do think it's really important, and if you look historically at our Common Reading, we are in the middle of literature that's being discussed in our country. And so it's really important that when students hear critical race theory, that they are able to have multiple viewpoints on that topic. And the stamped reading is one. Last year we read Biased, which was also very timely and helpful about biases we form through our interactions and through history and knowledge. So having readings, right, I don't know how many books you're going to read this semester, but you are going to read a diversity of literature. And through that, you're going to find out what you believe, right? That's the whole purpose, is to be introduced to a variety of research and ideas, and to whatever you adopt as your own belief and value system, that it is informed, right? That's what we want. And we want that dialogue and debate around ideas. You know, personally, I read the book and I found it really engaging. The author spoke on campus last year. I went to that. I found that really engaging. And so I myself read multiple sources of information, and that helps me navigate my understanding of what's happening out in the world.
Have any parents at all reached out about?
Not a single one.
Not a single one. Okay.
And I think people who send their children to our university respect the fact that this is a place for a diversity of ideas. And we offer courses that take students on completely different journeys than they anticipated when they came. And they reflect back. I can remember a course I took at LSU where I was an undergrad on the sociology of poverty. And here I am, 56 years old. Go ahead and say that. 56 years old, reflecting on a class I took when I was 21. And I still remember the moments in that classroom where I went, wow. Wow. And it just totally opened my eyes to a whole new body of literature and thinking that I hadn't experienced. And it definitely has changed who I am today.
What is one of your biggest fears and then one of your biggest goals kind of going into this academic year?
So fear is something I think all of us live with, right? Fear. I am watching very closely COVID. I think I've always, and it's not just COVID, I always am concerned about student health and well-being. We've suffered from disease, from suicide, from car accidents. I mean, those, the well-being. I have a list with the vice president's wake me up criteria, right? And that includes all sorts of things I don't want to happen. But if they happen, they know they need to wake me up, right? So they have that in front of them. The second was about what am I most excited about.
On a lighter note.
I like living in that space.
Right.
I'm really excited about the progress that we're making on our strategic plan. When I saw the steel infrastructure go up on the innovation quad, I went and stood there and just looked. It felt good, to see that building coming to shape and knowing the impact that's going to have on our ability to deliver great facilities and programming in our STEM investment. We welcome almost 50 new nursing students to Elon in just a few days. Seeing that, knowing the power of the ideas in that plan and watching our commitments to Alamance County and other things unfold, that's what gets me really excited. And that's why it is a purpose-driven job, and knowing the learning the outcomes that we'll achieve through that vision for our community is really exciting.
So obviously, with COVID comes a lot of costs. With building new things comes costs. With the future of education comes costs, right? So tell me a little bit about the cost. How are we doing on that front? How much have we really spent, through COVID-related necessities? Can we expect tuition increases, as we think about the future?
I will say that we have spent in the refund and credit that occurred in March. So it's not just spending but crediting, right? So that was $13 million. In the fall, I knew we hit the $10 million mark. We reported that to folks. I'm so grateful for the prudency of the university, right? That we had reserves and all, because it took a while before the federal support started to kick in for our students and for the university. So we now, with the 3 rounds of federal funding, have the universities received about $7 million to offset some of that expense. We took a 5% budget cut for 2 years. Some of that's just natural, like we didn't travel as much, and so some of that was natural, but some of it we felt as a university. Our faculty all gave up course release for research in order to be in the classroom last year. We delayed capital projects that we had planned that we were now able to move forward, like Smith. We delayed,
Right.
and so we were able to move things out. The university ended the year financially solvent. Like we weren't in a deficit, didn't have to reach back into any more reserves. And that was all because of just prudent budget management and those federal resources helping us. It is true what we're seeing, and Elon is a lean university, right? We come in almost 18,000 less than our peers in annual tuition. And we're proud of that because it keeps it within arm's reach of middle-class families. We know private education's expensive. I will say the cost of doing business is we're feeling it, right? You go to eat at a restaurant, it costs more, and that's probably labor-driven, right? So your people are the $15 minimum wage that we put into effect several years ago for our employees. You're seeing at restaurants and all that, and steel costs more, as we do that.
So inflation.
So inflation, we start the budget process in just a few weeks for the fall of 22.
Okay.
So we do all of that this fall, and
So we can expect more about tuition increases and things like that a
yes,
little later down the
and
line.
so you'll see that budget process unfold. We'll probably have a good sense of it by late October, what the fall will look like. But I do anticipate we will have some tuition increase, and the amount will reflect whatever we've learned about the current environment.
And now, who are you looking up to for guidance during this time? It's a lot of pressure on one person. I mean, there's, of course, a lot of committees that make a lot of decisions, but, you're the president. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you,
Yeah,
right?
so we have a great board chair at Elon, Ed Moriarty, and a great prior chair. We have a leadership circle. The past chair, Ed Doherty, Ed Moriarty, and then Dave Porter. And I meet regularly with them and the board, right? And we have an ad hoc group that's focused on COVID. They've been enormously helpful. We have another ad hoc group that works on diversity. They've been very helpful. So the board is available, right? Those are the people that when I need counsel and guidance and just somebody to brainstorm with. I also am part of 2 presidential circles. So I'm with the CAA presidents. So think William and Mary, James Madison. So we talk regularly, at least once a month. I'm interacting with that group, Drexel and Towson and Hofstra. So, and that is very helpful. And then, of course, I have President Emeritus Leo Lambert and President Emeritus Fred Young, and I just spent several days with them talking about the university and the future of the university. So there's so much goodwill about Elon. And our team, we're thinking about time after us, right? Most of the time I'm thinking about Elon 2040, 2050, how to make sure whatever we do shepherds the university for sustaining excellence is how we spend our think power.
And then as you see, the first class that you started with as president, myself included, start to prepare to exit and think about, our futures itself, where are you seeing yourself and your team 5, 10 years from now?
I do see that Boldly Elon plan, like in 5 years, this is what we actually have it mapped out. And of course, we had to delay some of it. So I'm hoping that we can begin to pick that up. We have our enrollment normally would grow a little more than it's grown, but without campus visits and classroom visits last year, we're flat. Well, I think we'll end up being like plus 10 students, So I think we're modeling 1605, and last year for the new class, and we were at 1587, I think, last year. So just a little bit of growth. So we're all ready for a normal class, to arrive. I will say the class of May 2022 graduates is a special one for me because I welcomed, that's one that I feel very close to and am looking forward to shepherding this senior year and all of the good outcomes we know are ahead for this class.
All right. And you talked a lot about parents being the importance of parents advising their kids. How are your kids? Are you talking with them about what is their view on the world right now, and how are you being there for them and for the university?
Yeah, my son called me last year a couple of times. Mom, I got your back. Mom, you need to talk. He was watching everything. And my daughter just moved back to North Carolina. And she got engaged, so I'm
congratulations.
Very happy. She finished law school. She went to Michigan, and she graduated. And I'll just have a proud mother moment. So she got 2 awards. One for, and whenever I say anything about it, she's like, Mom, cash awards. I had 2 cash awards. She won Best Student in Oral Arguments.
Oh.
Yeah, so she got to argue a case, and it actually was made arguments for a Michigan Supreme Court case, and they won, and it had a lot of they cited her argument, and so she's very excited. And then she also won Best Student in Labor Law. So that's the area she wants to specialize in. And she took a job with North Carolina Legal Aid, so she's going to provide nonprofit services for a little while. She's got a big heart and wants to start her career doing nonprofit legal work. So she just moved south of Raleigh, Wilson. It's probably southeast of Raleigh. Yeah, Wilson.
Well, be sure to give her our congratulations. That's very exciting. And then as we start to wrap up, what is one message that you really want every
I thought
student?
you were asking me about my dog.
Oh, well, sure. How is the dog, I guess? We can go
I actually
there.
thought I should make little videos about the dog training me. The dog so the dog has trained me very effectively. He's now potty trained, but what he does is he rings a bell on the door. And then I realized he goes out, does his business, comes back in, and I give him a treat, right? So then the other day I realized he keeps ringing the bell. It's like the dog has me trained. I get up, I go, he gets a treat. And like he's not even, he's not doing anything, just up getting that treat.
Will he be making an appearance for Convocation?
No, I wish he would bark and drive everybody crazy. But he's keeping me. I'm grateful I got him during the pandemic because he sleeps all night now and it's a lot easier.
Right.
But it's fun having him. Now, what was your? Well, I forgot.
That's all right. No, that's good. I hope to certainly see him around campus for sure.
Claire knows he's a cutie. He's like a little tiny thing. Yeah.
What is that one message that you really want every student across campus to kind of have in the back of their head as they step foot in their first classroom this academic year?
Well, I'll say from a health perspective, I hope that students are monitoring health conditions. I tell everyone I keep my mask with me. I just keep it with me, and it's I think part of our new lifestyle, right? Is that I assess situations and like, should I be putting on a mask? And it's not just even about COVID. We're known on college campuses for tough flu seasons. We know that students get mono. There's things that make their way through college, colds and other upper respiratory viruses, and so I just encourage students to monitor health conditions. I read an article in Forbes magazine saying that one of the behavior issues we're seeing in airports, they were saying colleges might experience some of this as students who haven't had a chance to socialize in their senior year come to college, and then the freshmen didn't really have a chance to socialize. So now you've got 2 classes that may take more risk socially, like drinking, and so that's all. I just really want to encourage students to put your health first. I think we all saw that learning can be exciting. I think when I talked to students last fall, they were so grateful to be back, and they were like, wow, I'm really enjoying my classes because they had been in isolation, and now they're back in class, and they just realized how good that felt. Well, that's still there. Right, put your focus there, and it's exciting to learn something new, a new skill, to put it into use, and so as a well-being, taking care of yourself for that, so that you can thrive and flourish. That would probably be my first. Take care, so that you can be successful in why you came.
And then finally, you mentioned airports and some of the situations that we're seeing there. Yeah. But again, as everyone's calling this, our experts now, the pandemic of the unvaccinated. With 94% of students fully vaccinated, 85% of faculty and staff, are you prepared for the pushback that you think you might, or do you think you would receive pushback for kind of continuing harsher guidelines, if the university deems fit going on when, well, majority of the campus is fully vaccinated, felt like they did the right thing, it's time to move on?
Yeah, I do think we are extraordinary in the numbers that we have, right? So a lot of times when you're reading what's happening at Chapel Hill where they don't have a vaccine mandate, or other universities that are masking up because in part they can't see who's vaccinated or not. Elon's in a great position. I do think we don't know a lot about this virus, and I think the Delta variant and just like the fact that we're understanding now the efficacy of with the boosters, and so we all just need to be patient that we're learning. And as soon as I prefer not to wear a mask, right? Like I just and so as soon as that's healthy and able, I'll take my mask off. But not to forget that we each have our own agency about our health, and everybody's health is unique. They're all in different situations, and so there's no way to have universal policies forever, right? People are going to have to learn about their own agency in this and when they need to mask up and to feel like they've got good information and tools to be able to do that. And so that will really be a significant focus of the way we manage this disease going forward.
All right. Well, President Buck, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can circle back soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad.